Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video of IGCSE Math Preparation Series. My name is Irfan, and today I have selected a bunch of questions from past year papers. The topic is basically general algebra, which includes solving a quadratic equation or a linear equation, as well as factorization, expansion, simplifying a fraction, solving inequalities, and etc. So let's go ahead and take a look at question number 1. I strongly suggest you, before I start solving, to pause the video and try to answer these questions yourself, and then later you can check your answers with mine. So the first one says expand and simplify. This is quite easy question. All you have to do, just to make sure the number outside the bracket is multiplied by each term inside the bracket. However, we have a -3 here. You have to multiply it by each term. Okay, by multiplying 4 by 2x, I get 8x. 4 should be multiplied by -1, not just 1, right? That gives me -4. -3 times 3x, that would give me -9x, and -3 times -5 is +15. You can group the like terms, x's together and constants together as well. So that would give you -x plus 11. And that's the final answer. The next one, so you can use the mnemonic with the FOIL if you recall, or if you don't want to use that, it's fine. All you have to do is just make sure each term from the first bracket is multiplied by each term in the second bracket. So this is kind of the pattern, what we're going to do. So, and the result would be 6x squared, right? We have numerical part as well as the variable, the quantity x, right? And then 2x times 4y, that would be 8xy. And then -9xy, because -3y times 3x is -xy. And lastly, -3 with 4, that's -12. Y and y gives me y square. And the only like terms are these two, which simplifies to -xy minus 12y square. Okay, and I cannot simplify this further, so I leave it the way it is. Moving on to the next question. So this is factorization as well. It's very simple. It only carries 1 mark. The only common term here is x, so you just take it out. The second term, we left with only 5. The first term, the index is 3. If you take 1x out, 2 x's remains, and that's it. That's the answer. The part C of this question is solving an inequality, and we have a fraction. So if you have a fraction, you have to get rid of the fractions. We don't want a fraction here, guys. So get rid of the denominators. This can be done by multiplying both sides by what you call the LCM of these two, which is 12. So I multiply everything on both sides by 12. Or there is another way, which you cross multiply this 4 by the whole bracket here, and these 3 by everything here. So either way, the answer would be the same. Okay, it doesn't matter which path, because this is algebra, and the algebraic manipulation, there are many approaches, there are many strategies you can use. So I'm gonna get 4 2x plus 1 less than or equal to 5x minus 8 times, and I don't need to flip this sign in the middle, because the 12 here is not a negative number, right? Nor 4 or 3. So I'm not gonna make any changes to this symbol. And then do the expansion. And the last thing we need to do is to gather all the x's on one side. I bring the 15x to the left. I get negative 15x with 8x, negative 7x, less than or equal. 4 goes to the other side, become negative with negative 24, negative 28. Now, the negative 7 is bothering me. We have to get rid of it. So you divide everything on both sides by negative 7. When you do that, you have to be careful because you have to flip this sign. So x becomes greater than or equal. Negative 28 divided by negative 7 is positive 4. So the final answer is this. So the common mistake the students make is right here. They forget whenever you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number, just make sure you flip this sign. Let's move on to the next questions. You're given a quadratic expression and you're asked to rewrite it in this format. And after you've done it, just give the value of P and Q. So at first glance, it doesn't look like a factorization that you guys have learned before. However, this is a perfect square. If you recall from the previous video, this is a perfect square. So the method we're going to use here is completing the square. Okay. Now, how does that method work? So forget about the right-hand side. Start with the left-hand side. Apply this technique. And then at the end, what we obtain, we will compare it with this expression on the right-hand side, and we'll find out the value of P and Q respectively. So I'm going to start with x squared minus 9x plus 12. The technique is quite straightforward, and it's easy. All you have to do is just take the b, which is the coefficient of x, this guy, divide it by 2. So I do it here, divide it by 2, raise it to the power of 2, and then add it and subtract it right after the x term. So I'm going to keep it as a fraction. It's easier to deal with. No need to use your calculator at all. So this guy will give me 81 over 4, right? Positive 81 over 4. You will add it and subtract it right after the x term, meaning which here. Okay, and then subtract it. And then don't forget the plus 12. All right. So if you have done these two steps correctly, dividing by 2 and then squaring it, these three terms automatically, they give you a perfect square, right? And the sign, of course, it follows the sign of the x term. This should be negative here. The first term is the square root of this guy, which is x, and the square root of 81 over 4 is basically 9 over 2, right? Or it's basically this guy as well. So the remaining, the constants, you can add them together. I believe that give me negative 33 over 4, right? Yeah, that should be correct. And then we're done basically, because as you can see, I have reached this format already. Just take the value of P and Q. So again, a misconception here. The students write P is negative 9 over 2. That's wrong. Guys, make a comparison. Look at this statement and this statement. The negative is already there. We have a negative here as well. So basically, this guy should be P, right? So P should be 9 over 2. Q should be 33 over 4. So no need to bring the negative here because we have a negative here as well. And that's it. Now they're asking us to write down the minimum value of this quadratic equation. Take a look at this expression. These two are equal, right? This, we have rewritten it in this format. So when this expression reaches its minimum value, do you agree that whatever comes out of this bracket after you raise it to the power of 2, that gives us a positive number? So we want the lowest value, a minimum value. This is already negative. However, this guy doesn't give me any negative. Whatever comes out of this, it's positive. The lowest value that this guy can get, this whole bracket with the square, is when x is 9/2, or in other words, when this guy right here is 0. So when this guy is 0, the lowest value is obtained when x, they didn't ask when, however, when x is 9/2, the minimum value is negative 33/4, because this expression basically becomes 0 raised to the power of 2 minus 33/4, which eventually gives you negative 33/4. So this was a nice question. Unfortunately, it carries only 1 mark, but it's easy to understand it. I suggest you to pause the video and try to grasp what really means when they say they want the minimum value of an expression. There was no way you could figure it out by just looking at this expression. That's why in part 1 of this question, in the earlier part, they ask you to rewrite it in this format. Okay, so let's move on to the last part. Write down the equation of the line of symmetry of the graph. Okay, we're going to talk about this when we get to the graphing and drawing a parabola. There are a few ways you can find that out. So let's move on this because it's not in the syllabus anymore. Solve the inequality. Okay. You have to do the expansion on the right-hand side first, and then bring all the x's on one side. So that's basically the procedure. You get 6 minus 15x. I'm going to bring all the x's to the left-hand side. That would be 7x plus 15x, 22x, and greater than 6 plus 5, 11, everything divided by 11. And since that's positive, you don't need to flip this sign. And that's the answer. They don't want us to show it on a number line. Sometimes they ask you to show it on a number line, and I think you know how it should be done. Factorize completely. So we have 4 terms. Guys, this is a very common question, and it shows up frequently if you see the past year paper questions, mostly paper 2. So you have to use grouping technique. So the first 2 terms, you take it together, the last 2 together as well. Look for a common factor. Here I can think of only q. So there is no numerical value. So if you take q out from the first term, we have p. From the second term, only -2 left. And here you can take 4 out, right? Positive 4. If you take it out, from the first term you have -2, and from last one you have p. Okay, if you rearrange it and rewrite it as p minus 2, basically they're the same thing. They're exactly the same thing, just different arrangement. Now I can use, I can factorize further. I have 2 terms, right? This guy and this guy, and they have something in common, p minus 2. If you take that out and open the next bracket, what's left from the first term? Q. What's left from the second term? Positive 4, and we're done. Okay, that's where we stop. The next one, that's a good question. It seems there is nothing you can factor out, right? There's nothing common between 25 and 9. Also, there is no p here that I can factor it out. However, you should remember the difference of squares. That's a very famous identity in algebra. Anything in this format can be rewritten as the product of the conjugate, basically a plus p times a minus p, right? The problem is here I have to do a little bit of manipulation and rewrite them in this format before I start. 9 is 3 squared. So I can write it as 3p, the whole thing squared, because from the law of indices, if the indices are same and between them is basically multiplication or division, you can take the index out, the common index. And here we have 5 squared. Now it's in this format, and I can write the first term plus the second term, and then times first term minus second term. As simple as that. Okay, there is no solving here, guys. This is factorization. If they put it equal to 0, then it's an equation, and then we need to find the value of p. So you would put this equal to 0 and then find p respectively to be -5/3 and 5/3. All right. However, they didn't ask. This is just factorization. In the next question, however, they asking us to solve this equation. They even gave us a specific method, because using a quadratic formula, I'm sure all of you know how to apply it, and that's quite easy, very straightforward. But factorization sometimes could be a little bit challenging. I can use inspection to solve this equation. However, I don't want to force you which method you have to use, because there are many ways you can factorize a quadratic equation. So I'm going to use AC method. So those of you who have not seen this method, you can learn it as well. However, the easiest way to me right now is inspection method, which is faster. But again, some of you might find it difficult. So that's why I use AC method. Basically, this is A, this is B, and this is C, right? And AC can be obtained by multiplying A to C, which in this case gives me -90. So I'm looking for two numbers. When I multiply them, give me -90, right? And then when I add them together, give me the coefficient of x or b, which is 1. So those numbers are -9 and +10, right? This is +1. So then you can rewrite this as 5x squared. The middle term, instead of x, you write it as plus 10x minus 9x. Where do you get these two numbers? From here. Okay. And then minus 18 equals to 0. Then you can use grouping method and then factorize these two terms. You get 5x out, x plus 2. You get -9 out. Okay, we can take a negative. Both are negatives. Take the negative out. No x. X remains there. Plus 2. And now the x plus 2 is common. Take the x plus 2 out, and you're left with 5x minus 9 equals to 0. And it's either x plus 2, 0, or 5x minus 9 equals to 0. And each one of them gives you a unique answer for x, 9/5, right? As simple as that. So this is AC method. It's a very common method. It's not always the most efficient one and the fastest one. So that's why I don't suggest you to use it always. Here, probably inspection for me was faster, because I could immediately open the two bracket 5x and x. Why 5x and x? Because 5 is a prime number. So there is only one combination I can come up with. And then you look at 18, and you know 18 can be obtained by multiplying either 3 to 6 or 9 to 2, right? 18 and 1 is possible, but in this case, when you expand it, combine it with this x's, you get a very, very weird odd number. So no need to go there. So you just basically key in these numbers very fast. You know that one of them should be negative, right? -18. So that's the inspection. You just key in like that, or -2 and 9, or +9 and -2, right? Something like that. And that's called the inspection. And if you're fast doing arithmetic operation in your mind, this is a very actually sufficient method, and it leads you to the final answer very fast. However, the add math student, they will be introduced to this method. As long as it's factorization, you're allowed to use any method that you're comfortable with, and I suggest you to do that. So, okay. Moving on to the next question. This is a simplifying. Okay, I was waiting for this question to show up. Now, if you want to get rid of the division, the first one is division. I told you what to do. You can multiply. My multiplication symbol looks like X. I hope I don't confuse you. You can multiply that by the reciprocal of the second term, right? And that would be X to the power of 5 over 3. And now the terms in the numerator, they have the same base, different indices. I can add them together and then eventually divide by 3, right? I can put a 1 here. Now it's easy to understand. Here, it's multiplication. So the numbers together, variables together, corresponding variables, right? We have 15, X with X here. The new index is 7. Y's, the new index is 8 minus 5, which is 3. Easy question. This one is a fractional indices. So all you need to do is to apply this. There are a few ways you can approach this, but I actually rather to expand this by applying this index to each term inside the bracket. So we have 64 to the power of 2 over 3, and then x 12 times 2 over 3. And this 64 can be rewritten as 4 to the power of 3, right? If you recall, in chapter 1, I told you memorize the square and cube of famous numbers such as 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? The first 5 digits. So 4 to the power of 3 is actually 64, okay? So you can rewrite it as 4 to the power of 3. And then we left with this gun 4. We have 4 to the power of 2 times x to the power of 8 simplifies to 16 x to the power of 8, right? We can do that. Or you could have done, but that's a lengthy way. You could have take the 3 out, the 2 inside, and you raise everything to the power of 2 and then take the cube root. But I don't suggest that. That's a lengthy way, right? Just because it works, it doesn't mean we should take that path. All right, moving on to the next question. We have to solve this equation. We might be able to solve it using factorization. I don't know. I have to investigate more. However, the hint, whenever you see this, 2 decimal places or 3 decimal places, don't even go near factorization because it's not going to work. As a matter of fact, they want you to use the formula. And these questions, they usually carry 4 to 5 marks, as you can see. So, and applying the formula is, the step is quite clear. You just have to make sure that you determine the A, B, and C in a right way. So A is 3. That's the first step you guys have to do. B is -7 and C is -12. And you know the formula says that the x1 and 2 is basically -b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, right? And you substitute everything. -b, b is already negative. When you negate it, you get +7 plus minus b squared 49 minus 4, a is 3, c is -12. Okay, put them in the bracket. We're going to take care of them in a minute. And this is 2 times 3. And lastly, we have 7 plus minus 49 times, this is 12 times 12, 144, 144 plus 49, that would be 193. Okay, now I have two x's, x1 and x2. So key in your calculator, one time you do the plus, the other one do the negative one. So we have 7 plus square root of 193 and then divided by 6. So they ask for 2 decimal places. I get 3.48. Yeah, 2 dp. And this time I'm going to do the -1 here. 7 minus square root of 193 and then divided by 6. This time we get a negative number, -1.1. It's 48 in my calculator. However, if you round it to 2 dp, it becomes 1.5, not 48, right? Okay, and that's it. We're done. 4 marks just like that. The next question, it's simplifying. The numerator, what I can think of, because these two are square numbers, right? So immediately you have to apply the difference of squares. 25 is 5 squares, so you can write it as x plus 5 times x minus 5. Okay, and the bottom one, you can take x square out. That's the only thing that you can take out. You place it outside, open the bracket, x is left from the first term. From the last term, we're left with 5 only, right? You see that the x minus 5 is cancelled from top and bottom, and you're left with x plus 5 over x squared. That's it, and this cannot be simplified further. Okay, so as you can see again, this is a good practice. So I'm gonna do this quite faster than the because I have already explained how it works. So you just go ahead with the substitution. So I'm not gonna write the formula down anymore. A is 8, B is -11, and C is -11 as well. So we have +11 plus minus b squared, which is 121 minus 4ac, right? -11 divided by 2a, which is 16. So we have 11 plus minus, that would be 473 divided by 16. And now the x1 and x2 would be, so I hope I didn't make any reckless mistake. You should be getting this as one of your answers. That's one of the roots. And the other one is 11 minus -0.67 up to 2 dp. And that's it. That's the answer. All right. And the formula, if I'm not mistaken, the formula for a quadratic equation will be given on the first page of the question paper. So if you haven't memorized it, it should be okay. So let's get moving. Okay, this is a good question. This is a question that you have to form. And as you can see, it carries 6 marks. So sometimes, if you recall, I told you sometimes you have to construct the equation yourself. The equation will not be given to you directly. However, the information will be given to you. It will provide it to you in the context of a problem, and you have to extract it out yourself. So Sarah spends X dollars on pens, which costs $2.50 each. She also spends X minus $14.5, okay, on pencils, which costs 50 cents each. The total of the number of pens and the number of pencils is 19. Total number of pens. However, whatever we have here is basically the total number she spends on pens and the amount she spends on pencils. So if you want to find out the number of pens or pencils, you have to divide. I hope it's clear. Let's say you spend $25 and each pen is, let's say each pen is $5 and you spend $25. And my question is, how many pens did you buy? So you simply divide 25 by 5. The answer is you bought 5 pens, right? Each pen was $5 and you spend this much of amount. So it's the same thing. I want to find out from the first statement. Let's go sentence by sentence. No need to confuse yourself. From the first sentence, if I ask you what is the number of pens that she bought, you would say X over 2.5 because she spent this much, right? X dollar, and each pen was 250. So this fraction gives me the total number of pens, right? So this is pens. For pencils, this is X minus 450 divided by 50 cents. So this is the number of pencils, right? And if I add them together, the total number of pens and the number of pencils should be 19. So I'm done. I have formed the equation, and that is the most important step, because I'm sure majority of you, if you're given this equation and asked to solve it, you can find X easily. However, not all of you can form this equation. Let's simplify it and then isolate X. So I can find a common denominator 2.5, and I get 5x plus x minus 14.5 equals to 19. You cross multiply, you get 6x minus 14.5 equals to 47.5. So I hope it's clear what I did, guys. I just did, wait a minute. I think I made a mistake. Yeah, I actually did make a mistake here. I have to multiply top and bottom here by 5. So that would give me, yes, this should be X. Sorry about that. All right, and that means I still get a 6x here, cool, but here shouldn't be 14.5, 72.5. Okay, and then it leads to 6x equals to 72.5 plus 47.5, that is 120. Therefore, x is 20, right? So that takes care of it. That carries 6 marks. And write down and solve an equation in X. So the first part is important. It carries mark. And then solving it also carries marks as well. All right, let's move on to the next question. This is a matter of simplifying this fraction, not solving. So I can do the same technique that I just used in previous question. This times 5, the whole thing here times 5. Where the 5 comes from? The denominator of the second fraction. And here everything times 2, and 2 is the denominator of the first fraction. By doing this, I make the denominator the same. So here I have 10x, expand the numerator, 10 minus 10, 6x plus 2, right? And then when you subtract, just make sure that this negative belongs to each term here in the numerator. So you get 10x minus 5 minus 6x minus 2, okay? And then would be 4x minus 7 divided by 10, and that's where we stop. So moving on to the next question. Expand and simplify. I have to expand this. If you recall the famous identity a plus b squared or a minus b squared, you have to square the first and last term, right? And the middle term is double of the first term times second term, and the sign follows whatever the sign which is between a and b. If it's positive, you put positive. If it's negative, you put negative. However, if you don't know this formula in the exam, or you have forgotten it, don't panic, because you can still do the old way, the old fashioned, which is expand this and say, okay, something squared means I have to multiply it by itself twice, isn't it? And then you write down the rest of the expression. So if you do that, then this is easy to find the answer. You just have to carry on the multiplication 4 times. You get 4x squared, and then 2x minus 3, 6x, negative 6x. We got another negative 6x here, negative 3 times negative 3, positive 9, okay? And this gives you 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. You could have obtained this directly if you knew this, but again, it's okay if you, I purposely did it this way so you know that it is possible to still solve it. After all, it carries 4 marks, guys. Don't skip these questions. These are easy. They might look scary, but never ever skip them in the exam. So continuing with the last part, this should be, again, if I expand it, I get 3x squared plus 12x. Okay, I group the terms now. I get 1x squared here, x squared. Then I got the x terms, and lastly, the constant. So 4x squared with negative 3x squared gives me x squared. These two gives me negative 12x with positive 12x gone. So everything is gone, the x term. And I'm left with only a constant. And that's where we stop. X squared plus 9, right? Next question. Factorize this. So you can use, it only carries 2 marks. So if I use AC method, again, guys, it is a promising method. Definitely you get the answer, but maybe for these questions, which only carries 2 marks, it's better we don't spend that much of time on it. So I suggest you to slowly try to learn the method by inspection, meaning which if the A, especially if the coefficient of x squared term is a prime number, so definitely you just write that number with one x and the other x here. So the brackets, they should start like that. And then take a look at the constant. So skip the middle part, take a look at the constant. So 3, negative 3, the only way I can get 3, because it's a prime as well, so is 1 and 3. So one of them must be negative, of course. So it's either negative 1 and positive 3 here, or negative, or the 3 should be here and 1 should be there. And this should be plus minus, of course. Okay. And now you do it very fast. I'm looking for 5x. So you look at these two. When you want to find the middle terms, you just have to multiply these two and these two and then add them together. Right now, that gives me 5x already. 2x times 3, 6x. And this is negative x. 6x with negative x, 5x. And that is done. This is the correct. So it was a coincidence. I put 1 and 3. So, but if you put the other way around, like 3 here and 1 there, then you would see your mistake and you just switch them and it should be all right. However, if you didn't get this method, I suggest you to use AC method or any other method that you are comfortable with. So because when they say factorization, they don't limit you to any method. So there are plenty of methods out there that you can refer to. Moving on to the next question, simplify this expression. So what I can do, what I should do is, yeah, maybe I don't erase this too fast. This is the second part of this question. So I need the knowledge from, so if you couldn't solve this, you see, if you couldn't solve this, you lose 5 marks, not just 2 marks, because you need to use what you have obtained in first part and then replace it with this state, with this expression here. So in the numerator, I'm gonna put 2x minus 1 times x plus 3. In the denominator, I'm gonna take out 2. That's the only thing I can take out, right? And I'm left with x squared minus 9. So at first glance, it seems I cannot factorize it down further, simplify it further. However, pause for a moment and take a look at this expression. When you have 2 square numbers and a negative between them, not positive, negative between them, you can use difference of squares, the famous identity. And that means this can be simplified as x minus 3 or x plus 3. The order doesn't matter. The other one should be negative. So 2x minus 1 and x plus 3. So x plus 3 is gone, right? And you left with 2x minus 1 over 2 times x minus 3, right? As simple as that, and we're done. Moving on to the, I think this is the last question. So simplify this. Again, the numerator, you can see it's already a difference of squares, so I don't need to prove that. I just gonna factorize it. The top one, take the x out, you left with x minus 3. Again, x minus 3 is gone, and you left with x over x plus 3. The last one, which carries 7 marks. So basically this question, it's gonna be a little bit lengthy. So, all right, solving it. I'm gonna start with getting rid of these fractions. In order to do that, I need a common denominator. So the common denominator is obtained when you multiply everything for the first fraction by the denominator of the second fraction. So, okay, I don't have much space here. Maybe I rewrite everything down here. Okay, large enough for you guys to see. Now I take this guy and multiply top and bottom by that for the first fraction. And the second fraction, I take this guy right here and multiply everything by that in the second fraction. And if you do that, we get 15x plus 15 over, this is x times x plus 1. So this is 20x x plus 1 times x. So it doesn't matter where you put the x here. Now you can actually, since we have a common denominator, we can combine the fractions and write it as 1, right? So here we have 15x minus 20x negative 5x, 15 all along by itself equals to 2. So I don't have much space. I'm going to continue up here. You can cross multiply. Everything here goes up, or you say I multiply both sides by x times x plus 1. It's the same thing. So at the end, you're left with negative 5x plus 15 equals to 2x times x plus 1, right? Just cross multiply. And then expand it, the right-hand side, you get 2x squared plus 2x, and bring everything to one side. So you get 2x squared plus 7x minus 15 equal to 0. Okay, so you can either bring all of this to the left-hand side, but don't forget to multiply it by a negative number at the end to make the coefficient of x squared positive. Okay, so if some of you got this, it is correct. It is correct, but then multiply everything by -1 to get this. So I skipped that part. I did it mentally. So just get this equation, and then here you have to use AC method. Inspection also works, but I'm afraid that would be a little bit confusing, especially for math student. For math student, they need to learn that method because they're gonna utilize it later in solving this kind of equation. So I'm gonna erase everything and just leave this guy. So I hope the algebraic manipulation, how we got from here all the way down to here, is clear. So now it's just a matter of solving it. Don't use a quadratic formula for this. As I told you before, the hint was a certain degree of accuracy. Definitely we can use this, we can solve this by factorization. And that's what we're going to do now. The AC here would give us negative 30. This is 8, this is C. So I'm looking for two numbers. When I multiply them together, give me negative 30. And when I add them together, give me positive 7. So those numbers are positive 10 and negative 3. Right? When you multiply them, give you negative 30. And when you add them, give you positive 7. So what I'm going to do with those two numbers, so I split the middle terms into two terms, 10x and negative 3x, right? When you add these two together, you get back the 7x. So I just rewritten 7x as a summation of two new terms. That's what I did. And that's basically the concept of AC method. And the first and last term, you leave it untouched. Now I can use grouping method. These two I factorize together, these two together. I can take 2x out. I'm left with x and 5. And here I can take negative 3 out, which again, I'm left with x and 5 in the bracket. And now I have a common factor. I can take it out and then multiply it by what's left from the first and second term. Therefore, this leads to x either to be negative 5, right? Because x plus 5 is equal to 0. You bring 5. Maybe I write it. So it's better I don't skip any step. Therefore, x equals to negative 5, or 2x minus 3 equals to 0. Therefore, x is 3/2. So as you can see, it was a bit lengthy. Again, at this point, after you find the equation, you're free to use any factorization, or as a matter of fact, you can use a quadratic formula as well, because they didn't limit you. So they just said solve it, but that would be lengthy. So if we can factorize a quadratic equation, we go for it, right? Quadratic formula is our last resort. Moving on to the last question. So this is just a matter of simplifying. You can multiply the top and bottom by the denominator of the second fraction. And you do the same thing for the second fraction. You multiply top and bottom by 4, which is the denominator of the first fraction. And that gives you 25/20 minus 8x/20. Okay. And that leads to 20 in the denominator, 25 and minus 8x in the numerator. And that's a single fraction, right? Here, same thing. So multiply everything by x plus 3. Here also by x plus 3. Here by 3, just 3, right? So we get 12/3 times x plus 3 plus. So if you expand it, be careful, take your time, don't make any mistake. We get 2x squared plus 6x minus x minus 3 and over 3 times x plus 3. So I can combine the numerators now. I got the 12 here with this minus 3 is basically 9. 6x with negative x, 5x, and 2x squared, right? So can I factorize this further? The top one, maybe the top one can be rewritten as, I write it down here. You have to be always a little bit suspicious about this because it carries 3 marks, so don't give up easily. Don't stop right there. Now, can I rewrite the numerator as 2x x plus 3? Yes, I can, and that's it. So why I became suspicious? Because of, first of all, this is a quadratic and I have x plus 3 here. So immediately write the second bracket as x plus 3, and this should be 2x definitely. because 2x times x gives you 2x squared. So now the argument is about what should be this guy. And this guy determines the constant term, right? These two times each other should give me positive 9. So therefore, it should be 3. Definitely should be 3. That's how I factorize this very fast, right? So I assume the second bracket after you factorize it should be same as x plus 3 because I want to cancel it from top and bottom. So no need to use AC method or go through the hassle of finding or factorize this by any method. So if it's factorizable, definitely whoever said this question, they wanted you to cancel one of its factors with x plus 3. So see if you can get back this equation by writing 2x and x plus 3 as the second bracket, and see if a number exists such that after you expand this, you get 2x squared plus 5x plus 9, and that happens to be 3. And that's how I did it fast, right? So, all right, and that's the final answer. The last question, a simultaneous equation. Finally, I was waiting for this because we talked about this a lot in previous video. Here, I'm going to use elimination. I see that the coefficients of x, they're multiple of each other, same as y. So it's up to you. You can, if you want to eliminate y, so I write it here. If you want to eliminate y, so let me label these 1 and 2. So I suggest you to multiply 1, everything in 1, by 2. So this become negative 4y. With 4y, it's gone. If you want to eliminate x, you multiply the second equation only by 3. So this become 9x. With this 9x, you subtract them and it's gone. So it's up to you which term you want to eliminate. So I'm going to eliminate y because I don't know, because I wrote it first here, maybe, but it's up to you. It doesn't make any difference. So I'm going to change the first equation to 18x minus 4y equals to 24. So this is a new equation 3. Let's call it 3. And equation 2, it remains untouched. So negative 3, this is still equation 2. And when you add everything, basically 2 plus 3, you get 21x. This is gone, 0, and you get 14. Okay, and x is found to be 2 over 3, right? 14 over 21 is 2 over 3. We're not done yet. Okay, we have to find y as well. So maybe you go to the second equation. It doesn't matter now at this point, the first or second. I go to the second one because the coefficient of x is 3. So if I substitute 3, I can easily cancel 3 up from top and bottom. Plus 4y is should be 10. Then 4y equals to 8, y equals to 2. That's the last question for today. So let's go ahead. For the numerator, the top one, I can factor out 7, and I'm left with x plus 3. For the denominator, guys, this guy right here, no need to waste your time on AC method or the inspection. They're giving you a hint. This x plus 3 is actually tells us that in the denominator, we are looking for something like this. After you factorize this quadratic, we're looking for something like this. So your goal is to find the second bracket. Okay, otherwise we wouldn't continue and this wouldn't carry this much of mark. So most probably this is the case. Not always, but most probably. And since the coefficient of x squared is a prime number, that's 2, definitely if you want to, after expanding this bracket, if you want to get 2x squared back, this should be 2x as well, because that's the only way. When you multiply it by x, gives you 2x squared. So finding the first term is not an issue. As a matter of fact, finding the second term is not a hassle as well, because take a look at the constant. How can you get a constant when you multiply this constant by this constant, right? And that's a positive 9. So we have a positive 3 here. The only way I can get that 9 back is when I multiply this by positive 3. And you shouldn't be worried about the 9x. However, just to prove to you guys that we should get back this expression, I'm going to expand this quickly. You get 2x squared, 6x plus 3x and plus 9. And this guy is 9x already, right? So again, this bracket right here is giving us a hint. So don't waste your time using any of those techniques. That would be a total waste of time. So I'm going to cancel the top and bottom, and I'm left with 7 over 2x plus 3. And we got 4 marks, as simple as that. So I hope you have enjoyed the video, guys. It became a little bit lengthy, but it's expected because algebra, as I told you before, it's a very, very important topic in your math book. And that's it. I think that's a good place to stop. Stay safe. I see you guys in the future videos.